Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Gen TV Plus. My name is Malik Lenzanzo. Tonight, we're going to tackle some international news. Not so good, not so good, no, not so good. I mean, what we're learning so far is that the Tunisian president has been making some outrageous comments, the racist comments that is causing sub-Saharan Africans to leave the country of Tunisia. And situation is not good because we've been used to see this kind of stuff happening when African in general deal with this situation when it comes to their brother and sister from Europe. But nevertheless, the so-called Arabic racism has been ongoing in that part of North Africa. With me now is senior political analyst, Mr. Gustavo Mvela. Is the usual suspect of Gen TV. This is a senior political analyst. This man is actually 4 times Olympian. Welcome, my friend, to Gen TV. Welcome back.
Good to be back. Always good to be back.
Absolutely. Now, we have some issue with our communication here. So, you have to bear with me because I have to go back and forth and try to mute myself and then let you talk. But again, like I said, it's a pleasure to see you, my friend. You and me, when we come on air, it's about to go down. And I know you have so much to say. You have so much on your plate. And I always, keep you busy. So again, you heard me in the introduction. It's so a shame that we have to, when it comes to racism. Racism everywhere. You go to Israel, it's racism. You go to America, racism. You go to Europe, it's racism, and we're kind of used to it. But when it comes to your own African countries, now, doing the same thing to our brother and sister, I think it's bad news. What do you make of the situation? I know you've been following the news so far, and I know you have made some strong statement toward the president. So tell me a little bit how you approach this ongoing issue crisis in Tunisia.
Well, as you can imagine, Malik, it's a very tragic situation when you have a head of state in which the Arab Spring in 2010 began. It began with I think a shopkeeper, a guy who was selling oranges, tired of the fact that he couldn't make a living and set himself on fire. Well, what's happened this time is that you have the fiery words of the president of Tunisia, which is now causing students of African descent and African students to be killed. My question is, where in the world can the African man go that's safe? You see what happened in Memphis, Tennessee, when these 5 fake police officers murdered a young man and thought it was funny. You see what's happening in parts of Europe and other parts where Africans are being lynched, being stabbed, and being mocked. And now we have here in North Africa, which obviously is different from sub-Saharan Africa, a xenophobic, racist president who is now causing the lives of innocent Black people to have to be airlifted from either the Ivory Coast and other parts of the world. I, right now, in my capacity as president of the Federation for Democracy and Justice, is asking that the Tunisian people call for their president to step down. This is not the climate with regard to what's going on in the world. And we need leaders that are forward-thinking and they can leave their racism within their confines of their home, but we should not give them an international platform. That's why I don't even mention his name. I simply refer to him as the current president of Tunisia.
I've known Lou for a long time, and I can tell the frustration that goes in when you talk, and both of us, it's a sentiment of sorrow, especially when you know that our young men and women are dying because of somebody who's supposed to be the highest authority in that country making statement. Uh, I don't know if he's facing some failure in his country that he had to use that in order to justify his economic, failure. There's a lot of unemployment in the country, and he accused the immigrant and some of the. By the way, last week I have a gentleman, the Gabonese fellow came on my show. He was talking about how even kids that came, to the country with scholarship, they were just going to school trying to get the education. Now the situation at this point is like anybody is at risk. Although they've used the fact that there's a lot of migrants coming to the country, taking their jobs, or the usual argument of the racist better. So my thing here is a gentleman that came to power, giving hope to that part of the continent. We've saw this guy as uh, 12 when it comes.
I missed part of your question, Malik, but this is what I'm going to say. I
Yeah,
think that
I was actually I was out, and I'm sorry, with some technical issues. I was actually saying that, do you feel the same disappointment that I'm feeling? This is a guy that actually you would think this is a trailblazer when it comes to democratic process. So how come you have a democratic spirit, and then at the same time now you are, creating a situation uh, that your fellow Africans have to die just because you cannot handle your own issues in your country. Yeah.
breaking news: a politician who changes his spots when in power. But unfortunately, it's at the backs and literally on the necks of Africans. Whether you're talking about George Floyd, whether you're talking about lynchings that took place in the United States of America, whether you talk about what happened recently in Memphis, Tennessee, whether you talk about the cancer of institutional racism and its microaggressions. My thing is that this generation, my generation, you and I have a daughter, two daughters, 22 and 28, they're not having any part of this. And so this gentleman who, once again, I am calling upon to step down from office because he is a disgrace to the African continent. And I'm not going to distinguish between Arab and sub-Saharan, the African continent. We can do better. I know that there are talented people, and the Federation for Democracy and Justice will help support. We don't care about the internal affairs. We care about a person who's using his platform as a head of state because of his own failings and failures. And once again, it's the black race that has to take the fall for his failures. Enough is enough. It stops today. The people of Tunisia, Gustavo Vella, and the Federation for Democracy and Justice stand behind you as you seek to find a forward-thinking, non-racist, and someone who's concerned about the health education of Tunisians and not wanting to put the lives of innocent Africans at risk. Enough is enough.
Yeah. Like you said, it's not enough is enough. At this point, the genie is out of the bottle, and the response to it is kind of. I see some people in some sub-Saharan Africa, as they say, starting to do just the same. They say, okay, you know what? If you treat our citizen in your country badly, then what we'll do is we're going to replicate the same situation here. So I've been seeing some video. I didn't want to play those videos because we're not here trying to perpetuate bad behaviors. But do you think it's fair for these governments, in the sub-Saharan Africa, to take a matter to their own hands, saying, okay, you know what? We're going to show the president of Tunisia that since you think it's only black African that or in your country, you didn't know that you also have citizens in some sub-Saharan Africa. So now they're doing exactly the same thing, the same thing that as they citizens or some of these experiences that they have in Tunisia. Do you think this is the right thing to do?
There's no. The short answer is no. I first of all want us to exercise some restraint. This is not the first time in the history of Africa, in the history of Europe, and the history of North America where Black people have been targeted. We're not here to call victimization, we're here to call it victims and victimization, but we're not going to be victims or victimized. I hope that President Biden, I hope that the European Union, I hope that the African Union will make a multilateral, trilateral statement condemning in the strongest terms the use of the presidential platform from Tunisia to spread vile hatred. As Africans, we're used to it. We have to deal with dictators, for example, in Equatorial Guinea, and the horrible things happening there with Teodoro Obiang. You're in Gabon. It's time for these African leaders to stop thinking that they can use their platforms to enrich themselves financially, to now spread xenophobia, and now more or less call upon the killing and execution of foreign nationals as well as their own. What is happening to the African continent? I call upon the African continent, its youth and its women, to stand up, be counted, and don't let these despots, whether in Rwanda, whether in the Brazzaville Congo, Equatorial Guinea, Ghana, Gabon. It's time for a new generation of leaders to stand up. Can I ask you something, Blake? What are these despots so afraid of when it comes to democracy and freedom? What are they so afraid of when it comes to transparent elections? We are in the 21st century, and it is an embarrassment to the world that people like yourself and myself and other talented Africans out there are having to watch our country, our continent languish into not even banana republic. And so I'm not going to any longer allow people to say, oh, it's multinationals, oh, it's foreign, what is President Macron of France, who's out there now on a kiss the tail tour. It is now time for Africans to It's time for Africans to stand up and stop playing these games. And I
have to go back and forth with this microphone. But hey, listen, you're absolutely right. And I will definitely give you actually a question on President Macron was going across so-called Francophone Africa, trying to double down on this neo-colonialism strategy, But to come back to the issue right here, isn't it the time for a country like the United States? And I know everybody's watching. President Biden is aware of the situation, but also the African Union. I don't know about you. I don't know if you already have some news. If you have news from the African Union position on this, what kind of not just a position, what kind of steps they're taking so that there's a clear message that shows something like this should never happen on the continent. And also, I want to see those outside countries that believe in democracy and they reject this kind of behavior to step up, because I don't want to be here in the United States and see the president of Tunisia for some reason come to the United States for any type of visit. They don't deserve to come in. Go ahead.
Well, this is my statement. First of all, the African Union, we know, is a corrupt, feckless organization, which is bought and sold by China. We know the African Union's building was constructed by the Chinese. Do you know that the African Union building, that every single room was bugged by the Chinese so they could listen in on all conversations from all these different countries? So I don't have a lot of sympathy for China And as a matter of fact, I reject the presence of China in the African continent. I reject China's presence in military presence in the Republic of Equatorial Guinea, and I reject Russia's presence with Wagner and the mercenaries, which are terrorizing innocent civilians. Isn't it amazing that the richest continent on earth, with all of our resources, that we are continued to be choked, as Pope Benedict said, stop choking Africa, and that begins with the choking by our own people. I reject the president of Tunisia, and I reject African despots, from Paul Kagame to Tito Obiang to Mr. Nana of Ghana to Mr. Bongo of Gabon and Mr. Biya. It's time for African despots to step aside, let free, fair, and transparent elections, and don't worry about buying the houses on the Champs-Élysées, in Beverly Hills, on the Upper East Side. Because you know what? In the end, white people don't care if you have a house out there. They just want your money. Let's come together as a continent. We realize that we live in a multipolar world, Malik, but I'm very passionate when it comes to unequal treatment from people, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of gender orientation, regardless of race. It's time for us to celebrate our commonalities and not prey upon the whole divide and conquer playbook, which has been going on since the beginning of time. Enough is enough.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I don't think part of the despots, you call some names, and I don't believe the president of Ghana is I think is a democratic country. They have free elections, and they have the peaceful transfer of power in Ghana. So I do believe that there's among the list of a despot that you just cited, I did that will have some reservation when it comes to Ghana. Some issues going on over there. I totally agree. But when it comes to those who have maintained power, because they're probably part of the bloodline, that I don't think Ghana is a part of that system. But you're absolutely right. But you also mentioned the Pope Francis, who went to the Congo and say that everything that's going on the continent of Africa, they have to stop. And I think it's a little bit too late, especially when it comes to the Pope Francis in the Vatican, because we know what kind of power the Vatican have in this world. And so words are good, but I want to see more action. If Pope Francis is very serious with what he's saying, then let put on our action. Because the Vatican does have a lot of power, and they have money too, because there's all the churches around the globe. We know how much money the Vatican have. We want to see action in terms of how much the Vatican is giving back to poor people in Africa. Then we can have an honest and solid conversation when it comes to because we're tired of just empty words. What you think?
Well, yeah, and as we go back to Ghana, there are some issues that I would just ask people to think, why is it that these African leaders, some more polished than others, some who have a command of the English language than others, some who can throw out the dog whistles to avoid themselves being overthrown by foreign actors, all I can say is don't be hoodwinked by those people with their three-piece suits and their multilingual abilities. Sometimes they're the most dangerous. That being said, this is now a message to the people of the African continent. I've lived in the United States of America for 53 out of my 55 years. I know that you're fatigued with what's going on and it's become normalized. I am beyond fatigued, and I am part of what they call the African diaspora. In the name of all of those ancestors who have died, who have struggled for independence, I'm calling upon the men, women, and children of the African continent to do what you can to bring about transition to your country. It's not going to be an easy thing. Change is never easy until it happens. Whoever thought that I could be in a position one day perhaps to be the first democratically elected president of my foreign country? But my loyalties lay with the United States of America for protecting my family, but my heart and mind belong to the continent of Africa. And so as a son of Africa who was raised in Salem, Oregon, and we love Salem, Oregon. It's now time to take the values of hard work, tenacity, discipline, free, fair, and transparent elections, accountability to Africa. Africa, you can do better. And as the direct descendant of the Queen of Sheba, of which my family bloodline is, Mama Africa is tired, and she wants people to realize that, hey, children, it's time to come home. So we're going back home, and we're going to bring back some changes with God on our side. Because they say, Malik, for those of us, I'm a Christian. I come from 4 generations of Presbyterian ministers, and I got a letter from the Vatican in 2006 from Archbishop Foley, who's no longer with us, who said that he will pray not only for Equatorial Guinea, but the entire African continent. I will ask those of you who are Christians to continue to pray without ceasing for Africa.
Absolutely. Listen, I hope this is not a conclusion. We're going to be taking a quick break, a very quick break to just give you, something to think about. And then when we come back, I'm going to give you just, back the microphone to kind of conclude, make some sort of conclusion on the entire situation. Because just like you said, and I agree with you, Mama African is so tired. Enough is enough. And whether you live on the continent or, a part of the diaspora, this racism, I think, is just, at one point we just have to find a solution, because this has been a very exhausted experience being a Black person on this planet Earth. So we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back with my brother, Mr. Gustavo Mvela, we're gonna just go back and trying to conclude this, wrap it up. We've been here almost some 21 minutes. We'll come back, just give us your profound perspective, because I understand you are a son of a pastor, and it's always a blessing to have you. So you can bless us with some of the word of wisdom when we come back after this break.
Look, leading can be tough, and leading without support, limited resources, an inexperienced team, all while managing work-life balance, is even tougher. This is an exclusive opportunity for you to take full advantage of my years of leadership experience and glean from my mentors and all the work that I've done, the learning, the trials, the error, and the growth. You're joining an ecosystem of believers, leaders, thinkers, and doers who are here to support your dreams, celebrate your wins, and encourage your success.
All right. If you're joining us now, you are on GAN TV Plus, and we're discussing a very serious issue about sub-Saharan African immigrants that are leaving Tunisia amid the increased, racist attack in that country. So, we're back here with my friend Gustavo Mvela, to give us some kind of conclusion on the entire situation. So you go ahead, my brother.
Well, thank you so much, Malik, for allowing us this. First of all, I want to commend Africa and Africans around the world for being so resilient. For centuries, we've had to deal with racism. We've had to deal with slavery, Jim Crow, institutional racism. Enough's enough. We've had to deal with microaggressions. Whether you're talking about housing discrimination, people who won't allow people to live in a house because of the color. And that's an issue in the United States. And I can say for an issue in Alexandria, Virginia, where I am. Whether you're talking about employment discrimination, you have someone who has multiple degrees, then it's a situation where even with a Stanford degree, you have someone who may not have a community college, yet he gets the job. So as someone who has 2 degrees from Stanford, ran in 4 Olympic Games, is a direct descendant of the Queen of Sheba, whose father was an ambassador to the United Nations and to DC, who spoke 5 languages, was an ordained Presbyterian minister, was an educator. My grandfather was a German Jew on my mother's side. How much do you need to bring to the table? I don't know, but we're not the first generation to struggle. We're not the first one to have to persevere. So this isn't a time for crying crocodile tears. It's a time for us to shore up our spines, continue to work with humility, and realize that every day is an opportunity to advance our legacy. I have 2 daughters, as you know, Malik, ages 22 and 28. They are my life blood and the fulcrum for my existence. And I want you to know that the fine work that you've done here, whether it's dealing with all these issues that have plagued the African continent, most of whom have become self-inflicted, I call upon the dictator of Equatorial Guinea, Teodoro Bang, to step down as well. It's time for us to start to show up a new and improved Africa, working with the United States and in a cooperative way. We're not looking for crumbs. We're looking for partnerships. And that's the name. No more days of condescension. Because they say, Malik, that if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And I choose not to be on the menu, my friend.
My brother, usually, I say that from the beginning. It's always a pleasure, and having you on talk to me. I want to remind everybody that in order for us to keep on bringing folks, decent folks like my friend Gustavo Mvela, we just have to keep the light on. So please make some donation to our Cash App. It's a $, Gen TV Plus. Go on to our page, YouTube page, like the page, Facebook, like the page. So we can continue to bring you some good stuff on this show. I know our perspective might be a little bit different, because we speak truth to power. That's what we do. We're not mainstream media, so you can count on us to go directly to the meat. All right, my friend, listen, like I said, it's always a pleasure, and I look forward to really see you again on the platform. I'm so glad that you're back in town, and we're going to continue to make it happen. The pressing issue that pressing pressing issues that actually impacting our society here at home and abroad. So again, thank you for guys for watching. We'll look forward for another beautiful discussion with my friend Gustavo Mbala. Bye now.